Our next lesson out at the W3 Schools CSS tutorial deals with font. And it's the font properties that allow us to enhance our text to make it more visually appealing. Let me show you what I've done to one of the web pages we worked on before. This one is A Satisfied Mind. Now, I know it's been a while since you've seen this page, so let me show you also the cascading style sheet that I used to enhance its appearance. The first thing that I did was to change the way that I sized my characters. Before, I was either using a percentage, saying I want this character to be 125% larger than normal, or I was specifying pixels, saying I want this character to be perhaps 40 pixels. Okay? Now that deals with the height of the character. Now, that works fine. But when I use the zoom feature to make the text in my web page smaller or larger, zooming in and out, and I'm using Internet Explorer, it doesn't work well. Internet Explorer is a little unique, and it works better with this measurement of EMs. Now, an EM, 1 EM, is the standard sized character for a web page, which is 16 pixels high. In this case, I'm saying my font size is 2.5 EMs, which is 250% of 16 pixels, which would be the same as 40 pixels. I'm also changing my style. This is a new property that I added to my styling. I'm saying font style equals italic. Before, we just let it be plain. And so my title to the page is a little more stylized. Now, another one that I could use would be bold. Let's change it to bold and give it a peek. And there it is as bold. Then I came down into my H2, which I'm using for my subtitle, and I made it equal to 1.875 EM. So it's bigger than my normal text by 87.5%. And I also made that italic. My normal text, my paragraph text, I set to be just a little bit bigger, 20% bigger. So 20% more than 16 would be another 3.2 pixels high. You can round that off to 3. If I want to change that, maybe let's make it, say, 180%. Now, let's not go 180. Let's go 150%. That'd be a 1.5, and we can save that out and refresh our page. Now, watch that, the lyrics. How many times have you heard someone say, and I'm going to refresh my page, and there. Did you notice the change in size? Now, the other thing that I did was I added an optional font family. Now, I like the cursive, and the cursive is a font my computer understands, but perhaps yours doesn't. And if you don't have that cursive font on your computer, your browser is just going to use the default font, whatever it might be. Well, perhaps if you can't show cursive, I'd like to have an alternate font. And so I can list alternate fonts in the order of my preference. I prefer cursive, but in this case, I'll take a sans serif font, whichever one you prefer, but I want it to be sans serif. Well, what does that mean? Let's go back for a moment to our W3 Schools tutorial. And I want to point your attention to these 3 F's. The first one is a sans serif character. Notice it has nice, clean lines. The second one is a serif font. Notice it has accent marks added to emphasize the shape of the character. These serifs are very handy if you're dealing with very small text or large volumes of text because they cut down on the amount of eye strain. But in our case, we have a minimal amount of text. The lyrics of a given song don't amount to that much. And our font size is not tiny. So the normal person is not going to strain to read it. Which is why I went with a sans serif. Now the other thing that I did, remember before we added this image styling to center our images, we said display it as a block and automatically set the left and right margins. Well, I did the same thing to my iframe. Remember, the iframe is what we were using to display our video. And so our video, if you go back to our web page, is in fact centered. Okay, so make sure you go through and read through the font tutorial and also play around with it. Don't be afraid to experiment. It's how we learn. Later.